Industry Manager at MathWorks. I'm associate with SAE Aerocon 2020 as a member of Technical Committee. And I'm privileged to chair our next session on technology landscape post-COVID era. I'm happy to introduce our next keynote speaker, Savyasachi Srinivas, known as Savya in industry circles. Savya is currently Executive Director of Engineering at Collins Aerospace, India. Savya leads a team of over 3,000 engineers and is responsible for overall strategy and operations of Collins, India. Prior to joining Collins in 2013, Savya worked in Lockheed Martin US and Thales, India, where he was responsible to drive innovation in large-scale ATM, avionics, cabin system, and IT. Savya received a master's degree in industrial engineering from University of Arizona and a master's degree in technical management from Johns Hopkins University. Savya focuses on creating an environment that fosters innovation and capability expansion and is committed to adding increased value to the enterprise. With that, over to you, Savya.
Thank you to the chair for the introduction. Good evening, colleagues. It gives me a great pleasure to be part of this wonderful event. Before I start off, I would like to congratulate SAE International and SAE India for bringing such a flagship event to India. It's the need of the hour, and I know all our industry colleagues, academicians, as well as students will benefit a lot from this conference in the next couple of days. So with that, I will quickly share my presentation and go through my topic. So the topic that I'm going to be talking to you about today is technology landscape in the post-COVID era. What's interesting is usually aerospace and technology, right? Technology is not something which you would normally think of when you think about aerospace. We are usually not path breakers or the people who first introduce technology into our field. Typically, we will adopt technology that has been introduced in other industries, for instance, the automobile industries, and then we will take it up. And there is a very good reason for that because of the safety critical nature of our business. Typically, we will take in technologies that are well proven, safety critical, gone through certifications, and then we bring up those technologies in our area. But what the COVID era has done to us is it has actually accelerated some of these technologies which have otherwise taken many years to come into our industry. It has expedited those, and those are going to be coming into our industry a lot faster than would have normally happened. So now let's look at what some of these technologies and trends and just the future landscape of our industry looks like. Before I get into the details, a quick look at the agenda. I will spend some time talking about my company, Collins Aerospace, give you all a little bit of an understanding of the work that we do. I will talk to you a little bit about aerospace forecasts and current trends. Clearly, the impact of pandemic is something that I will discuss as well. The big question in everyone's mind is, return to flight, what is happening associated with that. So it's clearly an area that I will address as well. And I will end the presentation at looking at both disruptive technologies as well as the overall technology landscape as far as aerospace is concerned. This is not meant to be a deep dive into the technologies. What I'm going to give you is a very high level presentation of what the technology landscape would look like. With that, let me get into my presentation. First thing I wanted to introduce to a lot of you, Raytheon Technologies. Raytheon Technologies is a very large conglomerate. It is something that got formed early in the year. It was by far one of the largest aerospace and defense mergers that took place, brought some very heavyweights together. United Technologies, you may all have heard of, and Raytheon Technologies, which may not be very popular at least in this part of the world, but is also known as a missile company, does a lot of work in that area, kind of brought that together. What this has done is it's given us a very good mixed portfolio of both commercial aerospace work as well as defense work. So I would say Raytheon Technologies is a truly an aerospace and defense company. Just a few numbers, we have about 200,000 employees worldwide. The The pro forma combined annual sales is about $75 billion, of which we spend about $8 billion in both customer and company-funded R&D. So that's Raytheon Technologies for you. Specifically, the pillars of Raytheon Technologies, there are actually 4 different companies who have made their mark in the industry. Collins Aerospace, the company that I am part of, and I'll be talking a little bit more about it in the subsequent slides. So what Collins Aerospace provides is complete systems from all the way from the nose to the tail of the system. We touch every aspect of the airplane without actually building the plane. That is one thing that we don't do. We trust our customers, and Boeing and Airbus do a great job of that. But everything else within the plane is what Collins Aerospace is involved in. So with that introduction of Collins Aerospace, I want to talk a little bit about the legacy of this company. Collins Aerospace, again, is a conglomeration of multiple acquisitions and mergers that have happened in the past. Be it Rockwell Collins, Arthur Collins is synonymous with the Collins radio. In fact, the first words that were spoken from the surface of the moon were through the Collins radio. Arthur Collins is the pioneer of that. David Sunstrand, when it comes to electrical systems, Thomas Hamilton with environment and control systems. We have Benjamin Goodrich, Frederick Rohr, and Ratier. These are, I would say, pioneers in our industry, and all have created the DNA sort of for this organization. And all the innovation and the technologies that we see today are as a result of their pioneering work and the formation of the companies that they did at that point of time. So with that introduction of Collins Aerospace, I want to now talk to you about what does aerospace look like in the future, right? Now, I wanted to caveat this by saying that some of these numbers that you're going to see are pre-COVID numbers. But our hope is COVID is a minor blip in this long progression that we have, and hopefully we will still be able to attain some of these numbers. But IATA, for instance, forecasted that our passenger traffic globally would double by 2036. That's a huge amount of growth in air travel that is going to happen in the next decade and a half. Even in terms of number of aircraft, 46,000 aircraft forecast to be delivered in the next 20 years, resulting in an almost about 130 aircraft per month. Granted, again, not happening in 2020 and maybe not even 2021. But the hope is that it will start picking up, towards 23 and 24 again once the pandemic is sort of behind us. And Asia Pacific is sort of the center of all this action between China and India. We are, the fastest growing aviation markets. You can see with the number of airports that are coming up, number of new airlines that are coming up, and so on. So, lot to look forward to if you are in this sort of industry in terms of growth. What that is actually doing is, coming up with new models of managing air traffic in the sky with, new aircraft scheduling models and so on. We are also seeing a lot of focus on the future of powering of these aircraft. So you will hear electrification a lot more in the coming years. There have already been a couple of planes that are fully electric that have flown, but these are, I would say, still in very nascent stages. There is a lot of research still to be done, but electrification is another area you will hear a lot more in the future. Urban mobility with the kind of traffic and the population that we are seeing in the large cities in the world. Bangalore is a prime example of where urban mobility is absolutely required. You will see a lot of work happening. It is already happening, and you will see that happening in the future as well. Another area where you will see significant focus and growth is maintenance and repair. Expected to be spending about $120 billion in the next 20 years, almost 500,000 technicians required in that period of time. In addition to manual workforce, you will also see a lot more of artificial intelligence and augmented reality come into this space, both in terms of maintenance and repair, as well as in the aftermarket area. So that's another area that you all should be looking forward to. Current trends, now when we have passengers flying, it's not just about getting people from point A to point B in a safe fashion. It is also how to engage people more and more. You will see a lot more sort of technologies coming in this area. The focus on the in-flight entertainment, which is in the back of the seats, is going away. I think you will see a lot more content on your personal devices. That's already happening, and you will see more and more of that, more applications coming on, more interactive stuff that you will be able to do using your personal devices. Sensors all over the plane, and I will talk about that more as well. The third trend you're seeing, and this is not a new trend, more hardware to more software. You're seeing a lot of the hardware systems, intensive systems, becoming more and more software intensive, and which means lesser weight in the plane, but it adds its own complexities. As you know, what happened with the 737 Max incident, which was a software flaw. So there is going to be a lot more rigor, but I think it should simplify some amount of certification, when it comes to some of the government authorities as well. And then you have, big data and connectivity and all those areas, which will mean that, we're able to look at, large amounts of data and make intelligent decisions based on that. ADSB is not a new phenomenon, but, this is going to become more of a mandate from different governments, and that will continue to improve, safety and situational awareness. And lastly, like I said, new type of sensing technologies, optic sensing, temperature, strain, pressure. You'll see a lot more new generation sensors come in as well, which are going to be interconnected and overall improving the smartness of the aircraft. In terms of aircraft systems, I spoke about electrification. So you will see a lot of hybrid electric initiatives. Connected aircraft is a buzzword, which is basically connecting all the aircraft systems together, talking to each other a lot more than they did before. And with the connectedness, we will be able to make a lot of dynamic decisions on board of the plane than we've been able to do in the past. Digital transformation, which means health management, Internet of Things, just means that data will be readily accessible, and you will be able to monitor the health of the plane, in any part or nook and corner of the aircraft. There's a lot of work going on in advanced engineering, especially when it comes to composite materials, airframes, the nacelle design. I know from a Collins perspective, we are putting in a lot of effort in terms of, composite material and designs for, nacelle development and airframe development as well. And you will start seeing more and more of that. And clearly advanced manufacturing will see a flip going forward as well. But the focus will continue to remain on aircraft safety and passenger safety. All work that is going to happen is going to be focused on those aspects, especially with some of the tragedies that have happened in the last few years. The certification agencies have become even more sort of focused on this, and you will see, companies like us focusing a lot more on aircraft safety and passenger safety. It was there before, it will just continue to grow, become stronger even going forward. Now coming specifically to the pandemic. Now, none of us knew that the impact that this pandemic would have, especially on our industry. If I had to pick one of the worst affected industries due to the pandemic, I think it would be the aerospace industry. No exaggeration there. The pictures are very telling. The top left picture, you have a semi-crowded airport, but look at what happened post-COVID. Very busy airports like JFK and Chicago O'Hare, they became ghost towns, hardly people traveling. And what that did was it put a lot of pressure on airlines, manufacturers, the supply chain. Initially, because of the lockdown, there were so many restrictions. And what that has led to is, airlines running out of liquidity, bankruptcies, government stepping in to bail out airlines and so on. And I think that unfortunately is going to continue for some more period of time, because Unfortunately, this pandemic is not going away anytime soon. But just in terms of technology, I think it is going to do some great things. Touchless travel is clearly a focus now. The idea is for you to get you from point A to point B, touching as few surfaces and interfacing with as few people as possible. And there is a lot of work going on in that across the industry, including in Collins Aerospace. A lot of focus on AI, ML, analytics, autonomy. Even within the cockpit, you will see a lot more, voice command and gesture control than we have seen in the past. That's what I was telling you right at the beginning of the presentation. The pandemic is sort of expediting some of these things, which would have otherwise taken a lot longer to come into the market. I'll quickly give you a couple of examples of Collins Aerospace where we are leading the effort in terms of touchless travel. Airing self-pass is one area where, it's basically, you typically take your boarding pass and go through various stages in an airport. Now we, with the self-pass technology, you will have biometrics and facial recognition, which will allow people to go through these different stages in the airport, without having to, carry any physical sort of paper or even your phone and so on. So there is a lot of focus on, biometrics and facial recognition and so on. That is going to be another area of technology that's seeing a lot of prominence. Single token integration, all the way from self check-in to self-service boarding. Automated border control is already there in some countries, but you still see some amount of human interface. The technology is going to make it almost to a point where there is going to be no human interface at all. So those are some cutting edge areas where Collins and the rest of industry is working towards as well. Similarly, with baggage services, how do you minimize, interfacing, handling, and so on? So, smart identification of baggages, smart tracking, handling, collection of baggages. There's a lot of work being going on in this area in terms of technology development as well. Some of the disruptors outside of pandemic that are driving technology are some of the government mandates that are coming in as well. There is a lot of focus on how do we reduce emission with, global warming coming into such focus. There's a lot of emphasis on reducing emission levels, be it reduction in carbon dioxide or nitrogen oxide, also reduction in noise levels. And that is leading to, new engine designs. The customer wants things to be faster, cheaper, cleaner, safer, quieter. And, unless there is significant technology advancement, we will not see any of those happen. So you're seeing a lot of work happening on supersonic flights. There's a lot of work happening in noise reduction, clean air, alternate power we talked about. And there is also focus on increasing performance as well. So a lot of research and technology focused in these areas going forward. Urban mobility, I think you can't talk about, aerospace and not talk about urban mobility. This is a very exciting area. Not only is it bringing in very cool technologies, but it's also bringing a lot of the cool players to the aerospace market other than traditional Airbuses and the Boeings of the world. You have all these new names that some of you may not even have heard of who are getting into this space. But what it is doing is it's bringing in a lot of, again, very new technology into our field, be it in the propulsion area, electric, solar, hybrid, a lot of work happening in terms of vertical takeoff and landing, especially in tight urban spaces. That is going to be a requirement. Autonomous, optionally piloted, unmanned. A lot of the technologies, because of urban mobility, are going to, as it's happening with self-driving cars, you will start seeing more and more happening with urban mobility going forward. And I know a lot of the companies and people who are listening today are focusing on these areas as well. Okay, digital transformation. I mean, this sort of brings everything together, right? So there is everything that is getting, the digital touch. So I spoke about connected aircraft. Now you're going to have the smart connected, cabin and cockpit. There is increased demand on reducing pilot loads, single pilot operations, pilotless operations. Maybe it's still some time away, but those are all sort of research areas that are being looked at. Intelligent cargo systems, autonomous pilot assistants to reduce pilot workloads, better situational awareness more than we already have. Again, in keeping passenger and safety in mind. More and more as drones and UAV are proliferating into the space. I think there's going to be a lot more focus on how do you manage the airspace going forward. So digital transformation is going to be the mantra of the future, and I think the industry is adopting it and will continue to adopt it as we go forward. And what happens to the technology landscape? So we talk about the customer drivers. We talked about safety, we talked about cost, we talked about it has to be great experience, efficient, optimized, resilient, agile. And because of that, you will see future technologies which are, again, connected systems keep coming up, but that's definitely an area. Propulsion, electrification, autonomous operations, more and more research in advanced materials and structures, and bringing all systems together through integrated solutions. So the landscape seems to be changing on us in a quite rapid fashion because of these mandates and the pandemic, and there will be a lot more emphasis on these areas. To make these happen, we need enablers. So there are going to be technology enablers and there is going to be function. What you will see interesting is some of these enablers are very different from what we used to be seeing in the past. And so today the technologies that are going to be enablers are advanced materials, embedded electronics, connectivity, artificial intelligence, electrical power. And at the same time, even functions will have to start being greater enablers. So you will see more in terms of model-based engineering, formal methods, with cloud and digital thread and twin. There is a lot of digital transformation that is taking place. A lot of focus on agile development, lean development. How can we get our products quick to the market and not take 10 years, where the entire landscape changes. But lastly, I want to emphasize there is going to be a lot of emphasis on security, especially the cyber side of things. A lot of the things that we are talking about in terms of technology advancements are going to open up a lot of vulnerabilities as well. And cybersecurity and resilience are going to be extremely important for us to make sure that we still feel very secure, flying in the future. So that brings me to the end of this presentation. Like I said, this is not meant to be a very exhaustive or a deep dive into these technologies. My idea was to give you a very sort of high-level landscape of technologies that are coming up, the trends that are coming up, and how this whole industry is evolving post-COVID. Hopefully, you found it interesting. Thank you again, both to SA International, SA India, and the chair and the office bearers for giving me this opportunity to speak to all of you. And I wish you the very best through the remainder of this conference. Please do safe and secure. And thank you for giving me this time.
Thank you, Savya, for sharing your thoughts. Indeed, very insightful presentation, talking about the technology landscape post-COVID era, like electrification, digital transformation, urban air mobility, connected aircraft. So hope these technologies would help to achieve faster, cheaper, cleaner, safer, quieter air transportation. Thank you. Hi, Savya. Thank you once again for the wonderful talk this evening. So there are a couple of questions here, but in the interest of time, let us just take one question for now. All right.
Sure.
So Savya, how do you see technologies like predictive maintenance, are changing or going to change the ecosystem here?
Thank you for that question, Satish. So, predictive maintenance is not something that is being driven by the pandemic. I think it is the work actually started a few years back, especially with more and more sensors coming in and the whole IoT happening. So, I think there are several organizations that are well on their way towards better predictive maintenance. What you're going to see because of our ability to kind of manipulate and crunch more data through the whole big data, as well as our ability to now apply artificial intelligence and machine learning. Firstly, you will see increased safety, like you said, because of our ability to improve reliability of our designs. Secondly, you will see less aircraft on ground sort of situation, because we will be able to predict when certain failures are about to occur and take preventive actions well in advance. So that is definitely something that you will see as well. But you will also see a reduction in overall operational costs, because you will have airlines will have to maintain lesser spares and in depots and so on, and that will mean reduction in inventory costs, and overall would mean lesser operational cost. So it's a very exciting field. A lot of work being done through sensors and through Internet of Things, and our ability to do big data analysis, and especially bringing in AI ML into the whole thing will be a complete game changer. So so that's my sort of feel for this question.
Nice. Thank you. Thank you so much, Savya. So with that, we formally close the keynote and then be open for the next panel discussion. Thank you, Savya.
Thank you.